Hello YouTube, Byron at Splitting Slices. Welcome back to the Knife Channel. Today is Wednesday, August 27, 2025, and that means we are in the middle of doing our Rough Ryder Traveling Knives Challenge. Phase 2 with the Box 2 knives. Some of the smaller knives in this large pass around, I think between somewhere around a dozen YouTube channels. I've got the smaller Box 2 in. I'm the second of 12 channels to review these. So let's get to it. This is the fourth knife of 5 that I need to review and check out, and we're going to take a look at it right now. Comes in this box with the original Rough Ryder spelling, R-I-D-E-R, and is model number Rough Ryder 2719. And let's see here, we've got that same model number on the end of the box. And the front of the box looks like this: Everyday Carry Knives and Gear. This is the series of knives that it's part of. And what this knife is called in the catalog is the Rough Ryder Slide Lock Ball Bearing Folder in brown G10. Now, it's a mouthful, but that is what it is called. So let's take a look at this knife real quick. We have a 7-inch knife overall when opened. You have a 4-inch knife when it's closed, so that's basically your handle, scales, and frame, which means we've got about a 3-inch blade of D2 steel in a sheepsfoot configuration with a beautiful ground swedge all the way from basically the start of the slope in the spine of the knife down to the tip. And if we take a look at this knife, you'll see that on this side you have no bill boarding whatsoever. If we turn the knife over, and I hope the camera will pick that up, but basically you have the model number of the knife, RR2719, D2, made in China. So that is basically your general knife construction. Now this is what they called their slide lock mechanism. Now this is Rough Ryder's version of a crossbar lock, or what the original lock was called was the patented Axis lock by Benchmade. All right, since that patent is now expired, we have lots of companies that are rushing to get their design done, and indeed this is their version of the Axis lock. Now, I can't take this knife apart right now because I've got too many channels behind me that need to review this knife, and it would be unfair to them if for some reason I messed up the construction or the deconstruction of this. But I hope one of the channels toward the end of this series takes this knife apart, shows the workings and the mechanisms to verify if indeed that's what we have. Now, when I view down through the knife with a flashlight, I cannot see the Omega springs, but we definitely have a spring system involved with this lock system. All right, there is no coil spring behind there. I do believe it is a Omega spring style mechanism designed for this lock, and there's definitely spring tension when you pull back on the slide lock. Now, first of all, it says it's a ball bearing flipper, and I believe it is, because I'll tell you what, the flipping action on this is excellent. It closes excellent using a little flick of the wrist with the slide bar. That blade closes. You do get a little bounce when you close it if you don't let up on the lock quick enough. That knife blade will bounce out away from the scales a bit, but once you let the lock go and it has a spring tension on it, there's a pretty good spring tension to pull that blade right back into home. So right there, we haven't hit, oh, there it goes, hits the spring tension. So very nice spring tension on the close, very nice kick out on the flipper. And I've noticed that as you close the knife, if you don't close it all the way, it does tend to stop right about the point where the spring wants to close the knife. Here we go one more time. There it goes, snaps right in. All right. That is all done by the Omega spring action on that slide lock. Now, I'd also like to know if that truly is a captive pivot or not, because we only have one screw on the pivot. The other side is round, but no additional screw. So there must be maybe a D machine on the inside of that. Again, maybe one of the later channels can take this apart and show the inner workings of this. Now, you have a lanyard hold at the back. You have two standoffs toward the back that hold the scales onto the liners, and that is it, and that and the pivot. All right, you have a lanyard hold again, so for you lanyard lovers, you'll have that access. It is ambidextrous knife as far as the lock actuation, but you only have a righty love on the pocket clip, only a right hand front pocket carry for this. Now, no mushrooms growing in the shade on this. You do have recessed screws into that G10, and the clip actually sits in a small pocket. So easy to get in and out of the pocket. Just a stamped steel pocket clip on this. Not too aggressive bill on that. So that's not going to end up being a hot spot for you. Although when I do put this in my hand, I do tend to feel the clip sticking up a little bit. And I think that's just because this is a smaller knife, what I would call a medium knife as far as a folder, and I have extra large hands. So this knife is really a three-finger grip for me. Maybe a little bit of the pinky, and that pinky tends to more hold the back of the knife stationary when I grip it. Now, no jimping up here on the knife body or on the blade. All right, so this is more of a three-finger grip for me, but it's a comfortable grip. It's a fairly neutral handle just with the one finger recess there. So that works out okay for me. Fairly neutral grip, but a good grip. And that G10 does have some texture to it, so that knife's not going to slip out of your hand easily. A good grippy G10 on that. All right. Now, I don't believe that testing a budget or a value knife like this, trying to cut paper with it, is really a valid test. I mean, if the blade is extremely sharp and no nicks whatsoever in the blade, it should be able to cut paper. But when I'm purchasing a knife for somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 to $30, which is where this knife falls in as far as a price point, I just need a decent enough edge on the knife, no chippiness on the blade, but I need a decent enough edge on the knife that it has a working edge, that it can basically cut some general purpose items that you would expect a knife to be able to cut. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to show you that this blade is certainly able to cut this 3/16 inch diameter nylon rope. So first we're going to go ahead and do a draw cut here. I'm going to put the knife on the blade, and look at that, it went right through. I mean, I had a little pressure on that, but not much, and that sliced right through that rope. No problem at all. Now I'm going to go ahead and move the knife back and cut it, and we'll see if it'll do the draw cut on the middle part of the knife. Pull, no problem. Okay, a little bit of hang up there, but went right through it. So no problem on that part of the knife. Now I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to move back here a little bit. Let me move to the edge a little. I'm going to try to get my knuckles away from the cutting board, and I'm going to try to just do a push cut, where I'm just applying pressure and just use the pressure and a single point contact and see if we can cut that rope. Oh yeah, pop, knife goes, or the rope goes flying as far as the piece. So as far as I'm concerned, for a value budget knife in the price range of $15 to $30, which is where most of the Rough Ryder knives fall, I think you've got a pretty good, pretty useful, sharp enough out of the box factory edge on this D2 steel, and it did a wonderful job cutting that rope. And I think that's truly all you can really ask of a budget knife in that price point. So is it D2 steel? That's what it says on the knife. It's Chinese made knife, but I'll tell you what, it's got a good enough edge on it that it went through that rope without any problems whatsoever. So that really does it for me on this knife. Would I consider buying this knife if I was looking for a budget EDC knife to do general purpose tasks? And my answer is yes, I would. It's got a good blade shape to it. Little small for my hands, but for small to medium size hands, I think this is a perfectly acceptable budget EDC folder, and I think it's going to work well for you. Now, the reason I think we were asked to look at these is, again, because of the uniqueness of the slide lock mechanism for Rough Ryder. As far as I know, there are only 3 folding knives in Rough Ryder's entire line that have the slide lock. Now, this brown G10 model 2719 is one. Its sister knife, the 2720, is the same exact knife, only in black G10 scales. So they're really the same model knife, just with two different colored handles, right? And they have a third knife that they make, which is, I think, the knife I would actually look at if I was purchasing it, because it's made for bigger hands. That knife model is model number 2610. And it's a D2 steel knife again. I believe it is also a sheepsfoot style blade, but this knife is 4 3/4 inches closed, nearly 8 inches when open, in fact, a little over 8 inches, and it has a 3.6 inch length blade of D2 steel. So definitely a knife made for larger or extra large hands, a little more to my liking, and I would probably be looking at the 2610 for the target knife for my choosing. If I was looking for a slide lock, crossbar lock type knife from Rough Ryder. So that's it. The only other two knives I know that they have, they call them slide locks, but I think they're a little bit different mechanism, is for two little box cutters that they have. They're out the front little box cutters, and I think it's a completely different mechanism design, but it may be, I think it's called a slide lock. But I believe an Omega Spring style crossbar lock, they only have 3 knives right now available with that. So that does it for my review today of the Rough Ryder 2719, the slide lock ball bearing folder with brown G10 scales. So that's it for today. Byron at Splitting Slices saying split a slice with a friend soon. I hope you've enjoyed this series of knives so far. We're going to take a look at our 5th and final one tomorrow. So until that video, everybody, please take care.